Hi, and welcome to the Audrain Automobile Museum here in Newport, Rhode Island, and our exhibition, What's the Super in Supercars? We're here because we've had a bit of a cast change. Much like a great Broadway show where the opening night cast wows the audiences, they get sellout crowds, and the crowds that have come here for this exhibition have loved it. Record-breaking crowds for the museum here, but we've had a cast change. One of our original cast members has left the building. Our 2009 SL65 AMG has been replaced in the cast by a somewhat newer relative. What's this, Ben?
This is the new 2021 Mercedes-AMG GT Black Series. It's much less black than the last Black Series we had in this position, but it's faster, lighter, much more aerodynamic, if you couldn't already tell. And this is the current Nürburgring production car lap record holder, which we're thrilled to have here and show everybody.
Now, of course, it's great that everybody does this thing, and I know it drives certain people, like our dear friend Jay, crazy that everybody talks about their Nürburgring lap times. I mean, we've got the Nürburgring lap leader here. We've got the Tesla Plaid, which also ran the Nürburgring. We've got all these things. But the interesting thing about this car, and something which shocked you, and you're difficult to shock,
I'm hard to shock. It's like
is the fact that in the Audrain collections there are two other AMG GTs. And we thought, okay, this is fine, getting the latest one, that's nice. You thought, no, this is a nice car, sort of neat, the wing, it's really complex, that's nice, but it's just another AMG GT. But this is very much a very different, it's not sort of, let's run out the model with a nice trim package. It's a very different car.
Just like the SL65 Black Series we had here, the GT Black Series is completely different than the past GTs, GTSs, GTCs, GTRs, GTR Roadsters, and GTR Pros. It's completely different mechanically. The suspension's been reworked, much more aero in the front and rear. We've shed weight. We've got no more rear wheel steering for weight purposes. And you've got about 120 more horsepower from a flat plane crank V8.
I was going to say, let's talk about the engine, because the engine is a new engine, which is astonishing to think of in this run of the car.
Yeah, it's completely redesigned. The notable Mercedes grunt, that growl that you get from those 4-liter twin-turbo Mercedes engines, is behind us. You can find those in all the other GT models I just referenced. This is a flat plane crank V8. Sounds much more like a McLaren 720S than past Mercedes. It's able to build boost quicker, sustain boost longer. You've got a completely new turbocharging system, bigger radiators, bigger front grille to allow more air in. You've got these crazy scoops here that you could fit a couple babies inside to release more exhaust.
Not that one would. Well, and it's not recommended by Mercedes or endorsed by the Audrain.
No, it's not at all, but it helps your Instagram likes if that's something you're into. Every body panel on this car, Donald, is new as well, essentially to get you bigger, wider tracks at the front. You see these vents up here, or gills, if you want to call them that, to release pressure from those front fenders. Rear fenders are wider track in the back, and that wing. I mean, again, if you're going to have 720 horsepower and a 6:43 lap time at the ring, you got to be able to stick to the ground, or else you're in trouble.
It's a serious wing. Actually, all the aero in this car is very serious. The front splitter that is extendable for true high-speed running. A multi-element rear wing. So this is not your go-to Pep Boys, buy a fancy rear wing to stick on the back of your Celica. It's not that at all. It's also very interesting because, for me, I've not yet driven this car, but it still has an aura of luxury inside that you sort of don't expect from a Nürburgring trap champion. So, what is that all about for Mercedes?
Mercedes is all about high quality, the finer sides of motoring, you could say. The first Mercedes, the White Ghost that might have spent time here in Newport, in the early 1900s, was a bit rough, you could say. These cars are much quieter. The windows seal much better. You've got much more comfortable seats, even though this is a track-focused car, than other cars in its class. But I wouldn't say it's pushing the comfort level of, say, a 911 Turbo or an E63 AMG. You still got that firm ride. You hear a lot of pebbles kicking up. Some of the sound deadening has been taken out of the car, obviously for weight reasons, but still, The car is quiet, comfortable, and you can really lean on it and, you know, get comfortable in this car at speeds above 200 miles an hour.
It is a measure also of how early the aero in this car starts to work, because just driving this around town, we actually had at our Cars and Coffee, our first Cars and Coffee of the season, 3 of them. So go figure. It's a very, very rare car, but we had 3. Proves the power of the pull of the Audrain. But the fact that this wonderful hood, these great carbon fiber, bare carbon fiber patches here are so interesting, but they actually show any sort of rocks and dust as well that gets sucked up through the grille, through these great fans, and it's an amazing thing. It's really an active car, even at low speeds, even at sort of normal speed limit speeds.
Like you said, Donald, the aero is active at all times. A lot of cars really don't get that sort of aerodynamic effect, really above 80, 100 miles an hour. But you do have a 2-step rear wing along with an active part in the rear, and like you mentioned, that front lip is always kind of interacting depending on your speed. If you're turning, you know, just trying to manage that air. But before we got delivery of this car, we made sure the entire car was wrapped. So this has a full ceramic coat, ceramic wrap around the whole car, because we did read about these pebbles that kick up through the gills, through the radiator, and almost every time you park this car, you will see small pebbles around the hood, you know, in these crevices and whatnot, and that's partly thanks to these Cup 2R tires, which I believe are the stickiest compound non-slick tires you can buy on the road today.
Well, it also gives me a great indication when I see one of these cars to check to see if the owner is a driver or a poser. If they don't have a couple of little stones in the spoiler and around, and a little effect of being driven on road, on a poser.
I will say, it's much easier to drive than it is to stick into a trailer, considering how wide the track and these fenders are. Getting it home from Mercedes of Warwick, it fit well, but we will say it was a bit snug because of how wide it is.
Well, that's one of the other things that we talk about all the time, how wide, and you come to this exhibition, you'll see how wide so many of these cars are. We think, well, you know, getting the cars into the gallery can be a challenge sometimes because of their length or because they're low. These cars are low and wide. And that makes driving one of these cars also quite challenging because you have to position the car really well. We were recently in the UK at the Goodwood members meeting where Audrain Motorsport was the presenting sponsor.
And I was here with the team holding down the fort. I'm sure everyone over there had a great time.
And it was fascinating to see cars like this being driven on these narrow English lanes. And I'm thinking, no, not for me, thank you very much. So it's good that we can enjoy them here in the US on slightly bigger roads.
One thing that's interesting about the GT Black Series specifically compared to, say, the CLK GTR or even the Bugatti Chiron, those are mid-engine cars. The engine's behind your head. With this car, if you look at the proportions, your back is basically right where the rear wheel starts.
Well, this is a mid-engine car. It's front mid-engine.
Front mid-engine, but the engine is in front of you.
Exactly.
Meaning this bonnet, this hood is so long, you've got like an entire Mini Cooper S in front of you that you have to place on the road. And without that rear wheel steering, yes, the car is still direct, but you don't have that center axis turning that you had in the past models. So it is much more difficult to place than a rear mid-engine car.
You have to plan ahead.
I guess so. Maybe you do some parking sensors or a co-driver setup would help with that.
I think a co-driver setup is probably the best.
Listen, I'm happy to sit in the passenger seat with you when we get out on the road.
This is an extraordinary car, and again, one of the cars that we invite you to come and see here in our gallery on Bellevue Avenue in Newport, and decide for yourself if this is the superest of the supercars here, or is it super, or how's it super, or, well, we'll let you decide. Thanks for watching.